What if the father of faith never believed? Picture this. An old man standing in the desert staring at the stars, and instead of saying yes to God, he laughs in disbelief and walks away. One whispered doubt, one moment of hesitation, and the entire foundation of three major religions crumbles into dust. This isn't the story you learned in Sunday school. This is what happens when Abraham looks God in the eye and says, "I don't buy it." The promise was absurd from the start. A nation born from a barren womb, descendants as countless as the stars, from a man pushing 90 and a wife who stopped laughing at the possibility of children decades ago. God appears to Abram in Mesopotamia with an offer that sounds more like a fever dream than divine revelation. Leave everything, trust me completely, and I'll make you the father of nations. But what if, in that pivotal moment, Abram doesn't pack his bags? What if he looks at Sarai, sees the gray in her hair, feels the ache in his own bones, and decides this promise is just too impossible to believe? The ripple effect begins immediately. Without Abram's faith, there's no journey to Canaan, no covenant ceremony, no name change from Abram to Abraham, the father of many. He stays in Ur, grows old managing his flocks, dies wealthy but childless, and is buried in a grave that history will never remember. Sarai never becomes Sarah. Isaac is never born. The 12 tribes of Israel, they don't exist. The Exodus from Egypt, the tablets at Sinai, King David, Solomon's temple, all of it erased like words written in sand. But here's where it gets darker. Without Abraham's lineage, there's no Jewish people, no Moses to confront Pharaoh, no promised land. The Canaanites, Hittites, and Amorites continue their reign unchallenged. The God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob becomes just another forgotten deity in the crowded pantheon of ancient Near Eastern religions, his name lost to time like Marduk or Baal. The monotheistic revolution that would reshape human civilization, it dies in a tent in Mesopotamia with an old man's doubt. Fast forward through the centuries that should have been. Without the foundation of Abrahamic faith, there's no Jesus of Nazareth claiming to be the fulfillment of Jewish prophecy, because there are no Jewish prophecies. Christianity never emerges from the womb of Judaism, because that womb was never fertile. No crucifixion, no resurrection, no apostles spreading the gospel across the Roman Empire. The course of Western civilization veers into uncharted territory. No Christmas, no Easter, no Michelangelo's Sistine Chapel, no Bach's Mass in B minor. And Islam? Muhammad's revelation in the cave claims direct descent from Abraham through Ishmael. No Abraham means no Ishmael. No Kaaba rebuilt by father and son. No Hajj, no 5 pillars. The entire theological architecture of Islam collapses before it can be even conceived. Mecca remains just another trading post in the Arabian desert. Think about what vanishes. No crusades, no Inquisition, but also no hospitals founded by Christian monks, no universities built around cathedral schools, no Islamic golden age preserving Greek philosophy, while Europe stumbled through the Dark Ages. The moral frameworks that billions of people use to navigate existence, the very concepts of covenant, redemption, and divine law, they simply don't exist in the forms we know them. But here's the question that should terrify you. If Abraham's doubt erased 3 religions and reshaped human history, what else changes? Who fills the void? What gods do people worship instead? What empires rise in the absence of Jerusalem's spiritual gravity? And perhaps most disturbing of all, in a world where Abraham said no to God, does God simply give up on humanity, or does he find someone else? Subscribe to find out what happens next.
The year is 1800 BC, and in an alternate Mesopotamia, an old shepherd named Abram dies peacefully in his sleep, surrounded by servants but no children. His considerable wealth gets divided among distant relatives who squabble over inheritance for a generation before his name fades completely from memory. God's promise, The one Abram rejected hangs in the cosmic void like an unanswered question. But here's what nobody considered. When you remove the cornerstone, the entire building doesn't just shift, it collapses in ways you never imagined. Without Abraham's covenant, the Hebrew people never coalesce as a distinct nation. The families that would have been Jacob's 12 sons remain scattered Semitic tribes, indistinguishable from dozens of other nomadic groups wandering the Fertile Crescent. They worship the local gods, Asherah, El, Baal, like everyone else. There's no concept of being chosen, no identity forged in Egyptian slavery, no collective memory of liberation. These people don't even call themselves Israelites because there is no Israel to be from. Egypt continues its dynastic cycle undisturbed by plagues or mass exodus. Pharaoh's firstborn sons grow up to become pharaohs themselves. The Red Sea never parts because there's no one running toward it in desperate faith. The Sinai Peninsula remains just empty desert, no nomadic tribes, no manna, no water from rocks, and definitely no mountain meeting with the divine. Moses? He's never born. The burning bush burns alone in the wilderness, witnessed by no one. Here's where the alternate timeline gets weird. Without the law given at Sinai, humanity loses a foundational ethical framework. The Ten Commandments, which influenced legal systems across millennia, don't exist. Concepts we take for granted, like the sanctity of 1 day of rest per week, the prohibition against murder and theft as divine mandate rather than mere social contract, the idea that morality comes from a higher source than human consensus. These ideas struggle to take root in human consciousness. Sure, other cultures develop ethics, but the specific moral architecture that shaped Western civilization is simply absent. The land of Canaan gets conquered by the Philistines, who establish a thriving coastal empire. Without Joshua leading tribes to claim the promised land, without judges rallying resistance, without David's sling dropping Goliath, the Philistines face no significant opposition. Jerusalem, which would have been David's capital, remains Jebus, an unremarkable Canaanite hill town. No temple gets built there. No psalms get written. The city that would have been called the center of the world by 3 faiths is just another city. People pass through it, buying grain and selling pottery, completely unaware of the cosmic significance it could have held. But let's talk about what really haunts this timeline: the silence of God. After Abraham's rejection, does the Almighty simply move on? Does he try again with someone else? Or does humanity's refusal to believe create a rupture so profound that divine intervention itself changes? Imagine a world where God spoke once, offered everything, and was met with, "I don't believe you," and then just stopped talking. The implications are staggering. Prayer becomes shouting into an empty sky. Miracles cease. The supernatural withdraws from human affairs, leaving only the brutal mechanics of nature and empire. Without Jewish prophets condemning injustice, who speaks truth to power? Without Isaiah's poetry about beating swords into plowshares, what poetic language do peace movements use? Without Jeremiah's warnings, who teaches that nations rise and fall by moral principles? The prophetic tradition that held kings accountable and gave voice to the oppressed never emerges. Tyranny faces one less opponent. And here's the psychological shift. In our timeline, millions of people find meaning in being part of Abraham's spiritual family. Whether through Judaism, Christianity, or Islam, they see themselves in a story that began with an old man's impossible faith. Remove that story, and you remove a fundamental way humans have understood their place in the universe. The narrative of covenant, that humans can have a relationship with the divine, that faith matters, that one person's choice can echo through eternity, vanishes. But wait, what if God's promise wasn't just about Abraham? What if his refusal simply meant God had to take the long way around, working through different people, different nations, revealing himself through paths we can barely imagine? What if Abraham's doubt didn't end the story, but made it infinitely more complicated?
So God doesn't give up, he pivots. But here's the problem. Plan B is messy, chaotic, and frankly, kind of hilarious in its desperation. Without Abraham as the chosen patriarch, the Almighty has to work with whoever's available, and the candidates are not impressive. Imagine God scrolling through ancient Mesopotamia like it's a dating app. Nope, idol worshiper. Nope, goat thief. Nope, this guy thinks the moon is his mother. He settles on a Hittite merchant named Tukulti, who believes in divine voices but also believes his donkey can predict the weather. God appears in a dream with the same offer: leave everything, trust me, I'll make you father of nations. Tukulti wakes up, tells his wife, and she laughs so hard she spills breakfast. A voice told you to abandon our business and wander into the desert? That's not God, honey, that's bad lamb. Tukulti stays put. God moves on. Next, an Egyptian priest who starts a 3-day theological argument. Then a Phoenician sailor who gets distracted by trade routes. Then a Sumerian poet who keeps asking what truth really means. Each attempt fizzles. The covenant that should have taken 1 generation now takes 4 centuries of divine trial and error. Meanwhile, human civilization develops without Abrahamic faith, and it gets weird. Polytheism runs wild. By 1000 BC, the Mediterranean has over 3,000 documented gods. There's a god of doorways, a god of left shoes specifically, a goddess of milk that's been sitting out too long. Religious life becomes bureaucratic chaos. People spend half their income keeping gods moderately happy through endless sacrifices and festivals. But here's the darkest twist. Without the concept of a personal God who cares about justice, religion becomes purely transactional. No covenant, no love, no redemption. Child sacrifice, which Abraham's story ended when God stopped him from killing Isaac, continues unchecked. The Phoenicians practice it, the Canaanites practice it, and without a religious revolution condemning it, the practice spreads. Gods demand blood, and people comply because nobody's introduced the radical idea that maybe the divine prefers mercy. Around 500 BC, Greek philosophers propose one supreme divine principle: pure rationality without personality. It gains traction among intellectuals but never reaches the masses because it's too abstract. Monotheism as math equation rather than love story. Humans need narrative to believe. The Roman Empire rises, but without Christianity to transform it, remains brutally pagan. Gladiatorial games never end. Slavery continues without theological opposition. The concept of inherent human dignity, that every person is made in God's image, never takes root because Genesis doesn't exist. By what should be year 0, there's no Christmas to mark it, no Messiah expected because no prophecies foretold one. Just another year in an empire worshiping Jupiter and Caesar. And then, in a village that isn't Nazareth, a child is born who grows up talking about one God who loves unconditionally, and everyone thinks he's plagiarizing Greek philosophers from centuries ago. They ignore him completely. The revolution dies in obscurity because the soil was never prepared, the prophecies never written, the longing never planted in human hearts.
Let's jump forward to the Middle Ages that never quite happened the way you know them. Without Christianity spreading through Rome, Constantine never converts in 312 AD because there's no Christianity to convert to. The Edict of Milan never grants religious freedom. The Council of Nicaea never debates the nature of Christ. The Roman Empire collapses under barbarian invasion around 476 AD as scheduled. But here's the twist. There's no church to preserve knowledge through the chaos. Picture medieval Europe without monasteries copying manuscripts, without cathedral schools teaching literacy, without monks developing agriculture techniques. The Dark Ages become genuinely dark, not a flickering candle of faith keeping learning alive, but actual intellectual blackout. Libraries burn with no one to save them. Latin dies as a scholarly language because there's no church using it. The classical knowledge of Greece and Rome that monks preserved, lost.
Plato, Aristotle, Virgil, their works become kindling for cooking fires. Universities never emerge because they grew from cathedral schools that don't exist. Oxford, Cambridge, the Sorbonne, none of them found it. The scientific revolution that required centuries of church-sponsored philosophy and debate about the rational nature of God's creation doesn't happen. Galileo, Copernicus, Newton, all working within Christian frameworks to understand divine order, never develop their theories because the framework isn't there. But wait, it gets weirder. Without Islam arising from Abrahamic roots, the Arabian Peninsula remains fractured into tribal warfare. There's no unified caliphate, no Islamic golden age preserving and expanding Greek mathematics and medicine. The numerals you use right now, the Arabic numerals that made modern math possible, they don't spread to Europe. We're still doing calculations with Roman numerals, which means your calculus homework would be literally impossible. Good luck finding the derivative of f of x equals IVI multiplied by III using only letters. The Crusades never happened because there's no Jerusalem to fight over, no Holy Land, no competing claims to sacred territory. Sounds peaceful, right? Wrong. Instead, Europe tears itself apart in endless tribal wars without the church acting as mediator. Kings have no pope to answer to, no religious authority checking their power. Feudalism becomes even more brutal without the concept that rulers are accountable to God. Peasants have no sanctuary in churches, no feast days, no religious festivals, breaking up the monotony of servitude. Life is Hobbesian before Hobbes, nasty, brutish, and short. Meanwhile, in the East, Buddhism and Hinduism expand unchecked into territories that would have been Islamic or Christian. The Silk Road carries different ideas. China's religious landscape shifts dramatically. But here's the psychological toll. Billions of humans across centuries live without the Abrahamic concept of linear history moving toward redemption. Instead, cyclical time dominates, eternal return, reincarnation, no ultimate purpose. History becomes a wheel spinning forever, rather than a story moving toward climax. Art takes a radically different path. No Michelangelo painting the Sistine Chapel. There is no Sistine Chapel. No Bach composing masses. No Gothic cathedrals reaching toward heaven because no one's trying to build toward God. Architecture remains purely functional or imperial. The transcendent beauty born from religious yearning, absent. Music develops through secular courts and pagan rituals, talented but lacking the devotional depth that produced centuries of sacred masterpieces. Literature loses entire genres. No Dante's Divine Comedy, no Milton's Paradise Lost, no Dostoevsky wrestling with faith. The existential questions these works explored, sin, redemption, the nature of good and evil, get asked differently, answered differently, or not asked at all. The hero's journey lacks the martyrdom narrative. Sacrifice for others becomes foolishness rather than Christ-like. Self-interest dominates philosophy because there's no competing ethic of selfless love. By the Renaissance that isn't quite a Renaissance, Europe has advanced technologically through necessity and warfare, but remains spiritually pagan and intellectually stunted. The printing press gets invented, but spreads superstition faster than wisdom because there's no biblical literacy driving demand for education. Enlightenment values of human rights and dignity struggle to emerge without the theological foundation that all humans bear divine image. And here we arrive at modernity's doorstep, with a civilization that looks vaguely familiar but feels fundamentally alien, technologically capable but morally adrift, powerful but purposeless, and about to face the 20th century's horrors without any framework for understanding evil or fighting for good.
Let's jump forward to the Middle Ages that never quite happened the way you know them. Without Christianity spreading through Rome, Constantine never converts in 312 AD because there's no Christianity to convert to. The Edict of Milan never grants religious freedom. The Council of Nicaea never debates the nature of Christ. The Roman Empire collapses under barbarian invasion around 476 AD as scheduled. But here's the twist. There's no church to preserve knowledge through the chaos. Picture medieval Europe without monasteries copying manuscripts, without cathedral schools teaching literacy, without monks developing agriculture techniques. The Dark Ages become genuinely dark, not a flickering candle of faith keeping learning alive, but actual intellectual blackout. Libraries burn with no one to save them. Latin dies as a scholarly language because there's no church using it. The classical knowledge of Greece and Rome that monks preserved? Lost. Plato, Aristotle, Virgil, their works become kindling for cooking fires. Universities never emerge because they grew from cathedral schools that don't exist. Oxford, Cambridge, the Sorbonne, none of them found it. The scientific revolution that required centuries of church-sponsored philosophy and debate about the rational nature of God's creation doesn't happen. Galileo, Copernicus, Newton, all working within Christian frameworks to understand divine order, never developed their theories because the framework isn't there. But wait, it gets weirder. Without Islam arising from Abrahamic roots, the Arabian Peninsula remains fractured into tribal warfare. There's no unified caliphate, no Islamic golden age preserving and expanding Greek mathematics and medicine. The numerals you use right now, the Arabic numerals that made modern math possible, they don't spread to Europe. We're still doing calculations with Roman numerals, which means your calculus homework would be literally impossible. Good luck finding the derivative of f of x equals I multiplied by I using only letters. The Crusades never happen because there's no Jerusalem to fight over, no Holy Land, no competing claims to sacred territory. Sounds peaceful, right? Wrong. Instead, Europe tears itself apart in endless tribal wars without the church acting as mediator. Kings have no pope to answer to, no religious authority checking their power. Feudalism becomes even more brutal without the concept that rulers are accountable to God. Peasants have no sanctuary in churches, no feast days, no religious festivals breaking up the monotony of servitude. Life is Hobbesian before Hobbes, nasty, brutish, and short. Meanwhile, in the East, Buddhism and Hinduism expand unchecked into territories that would have been Islamic or Christian. The Silk Road carries different ideas. China's religious landscape shifts dramatically, but here's the psychological toll. Billions of humans across centuries live without the Abrahamic concept of linear history moving toward redemption. Instead, cyclical time dominates. Eternal return, reincarnation, no ultimate purpose. History becomes a wheel spinning forever rather than a story moving toward a climax. Art takes a radically different path. No Michelangelo painting the Sistine Chapel, there is no Sistine Chapel. No Bach composing masses, no Gothic cathedrals reaching toward heaven because no one's trying to build toward God. Architecture remains purely functional or imperial. The transcendent beauty born from religious yearning? Absent. Music develops through secular courts and pagan rituals, talented but lacking the devotional depth that produced centuries of sacred masterpieces. Literature loses entire genres. No Dante's Divine Comedy, no Milton's Paradise Lost, no Dostoevsky wrestling with faith. The existential questions these works explored, sin, redemption, the nature of good and evil, get asked differently, answered differently, or not asked at all. The hero's journey lacks the martyrdom narrative. Sacrifice for others becomes foolishness rather than Christ-like. Self-interest dominates philosophy because there's no competing ethic of selfless love. By the Renaissance that isn't quite a Renaissance, Europe has advanced technologically through necessity and warfare, but remains spiritually pagan and intellectually stunted. The printing press gets invented, but spreads superstition faster than wisdom because there's no biblical literacy driving demand for education. Enlightenment values of human rights and dignity struggle to emerge without the theological foundation that all humans bear divine image. And here we arrive at modernity's doorstep with a civilization that looks vaguely familiar but feels fundamentally alien, technologically capable but morally adrift.
powerful but purposeless, and about to face the 20th century's horrors without any framework for understanding evil or fighting for good.
The 20th century arrives, and this alternate timeline faces its darkest test. World War I erupts from the same tensions, the same imperial ambitions, the same powder keg in the Balkans. Millions die in trenches. But here's what's missing: the chaplains praying with dying soldiers, the religious objectors standing for conscience, the faith that helped millions find meaning in senseless slaughter. Soldiers die believing in nothing but nationalism. No prayers in foxholes, no hope beyond mud and blood. When fascism rises in the 1930s, there's no religious framework to oppose it. Hitler's regime faced opposition from believers who said some things are sacred, some lines cannot be crossed. In this timeline, pure utilitarianism prevails. If it benefits the state, it's justified. The Holocaust happens, but there's no Dietrich Bonhoeffer organizing resistance, no churches hiding Jews. Genocide becomes a logical extension of might makes right, with no competing moral authority. The atomic bomb still drops on Japan, but without ethical wrestling of religious scientists questioning if humans should play God. Just pragmatic calculation: end the war faster, save American lives. No moral anguish. Oppenheimer doesn't quote sacred texts because mixing science with spirituality seems backwards. The Cold War emerges between superpowers guided only by self-interest and survival. There's no Martin Luther King Jr. leading civil rights rooted in biblical justice, no sermons citing moral law above human law. The struggle happens because oppression breeds resistance, but it's purely political, lacking the moral authority that made it undeniable. Change comes slower, bloodier, incomplete. Technology explodes forward faster because there's no religious skepticism slowing things down. Genetic engineering, artificial intelligence, human enhancement, they proceed without ethical guardrails. The question isn't should we, but only can we. Cloning humans begins in the 1990s because no one debates whether humans have souls or special dignity. We're sophisticated animals, so why not optimize the breeding? Social bonds fray differently. Without religious communities providing support networks, people are isolated. Charitable organizations exist, but lack volunteer armies that faith mobilized. Hospitals and schools, historically founded by religious orders, are fewer and expensive. Education focuses purely on job preparation, not character development. Marriage becomes purely contractual, no sacred vows, just legal benefits. Easier to enter, easier to leave, which sounds liberating until commitment becomes impossible without believing some promises are holy. Families fragment faster. Mental health crises explode because humans need purpose, and purpose requires something beyond yourself. Suicide rates climb because when suffering has no meaning, ending it seems rational. The question, why am I here, has no good answers. Evolution says reproduce, economics says produce. Philosophy offers theories but no comfort. The God-shaped hole becomes a gaping wound. Art becomes either propaganda or navel-gazing. Without tradition of art as worship, as reaching toward divine, it defaults to serving state or self. Museums display technically impressive works that leave viewers empty. Music provides distraction, but not transcendence. By the 21st century, this alternate humanity achieved remarkable things technologically, but lost something essential. We've conquered disease, connected globally, visited space, but don't know why it matters. Old gods are obviously myths. Philosophy offers no compelling narrative. We're sophisticated, educated, powerful, and profoundly lost. And somewhere in this alternate 2025, someone asks, is this all there is? The silence that answers back is deafening, because Abraham's doubt didn't just change history, it hollowed it out.